Thank you, Chairman Latta and Ranking Member Castor, for holding this hearing on how we can meet our growing demand for reliable and affordable electricity. I'm glad to hear Chairman Guthrie in his questions earlier say that that should include clean energy sources like wind and solar. I agree. So I'm a member of Gen X, and I grew up on Schoolhouse Rock. And I think everybody here knows and is very familiar with I'm Just a Bill. But my favorite episode actually was the Energy Blues. And I can't help, as we've been listening to your testimony and the questions, I've had Energy Blues rolling through my mind. Maybe one day I'll ask for unanimous consent to put the lyrics in the record. I'm not going to sing it, but I do want to highlight a couple of them. Energy. Sometimes I think I'm running out of energy. Seems like we use an awful lot for heating and lighting and driving, reading and writing and jiving. Energy, you'd think we'd be saving it up. It goes through a history of the energy sources and the increase in demand in American history. It says, energy, we're looking to try and find some new kinds. Energy, exploring to try and make a new find. Nuclear and thermal and solar, if we miss, we'll get colder and colder. Energy, we've got to stop using you up. Then it introduced my little kid self to the concept of energy efficiency. So don't get cross when Mama says turn that extra light out. Just turn it off till we find us a fuel that never runs out. If everyone tries a bit harder, our fuel will go farther and farther. Energy, we're going to be stretching you out. So just want to remind you that our childhood shows, our childhood jingles are actually very educational and still very relevant. So Mr. Brickhouse, I think I misheard you in one of your answers, and I want to make sure I set the record straight. In your written testimony, you urged Congress to keep the investment tax credit and production tax credit. Is that correct?
Correct, and in my oral testimony, I referenced that as well.
Okay, I thought I might have misheard you. I thought I heard something that contradicted that, so I just wanted to make sure that your position on that was clear. In Virginia, we have the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project, which is an incredible example of how offshore wind can be a powerful economic engine for the entire region. And it's something that has bipartisan support that grew out of bipartisan, the Virginia Clean Economy Act and related wind legislation that we passed. And nationally, offshore wind has brought $25 billion in new investments to ports, factories, manufacturing facilities, the electrical grid, and jobs. You all have discussed the demand for electricity in the region is expected to grow significantly in the coming years for a wide variety of reasons. And there are currently offshore wind projects like the one in Virginia and elsewhere that could contribute to PJM's grid. Mr. Norris, could you explain how, despite Chairman Guthrie's view that wind and solar are necessary and we should continue down that path, can you talk about how President Trump's executive order halting new federal leases and permits for wind energy and the massive uncertainty it creates for businesses will impact PJM's ability to meet the growing demand for energy in the coming years?
Yeah, well, one of the great things about offshore wind is it actually has a pretty high capacity factor and a capacity value because it actually produces on winter mornings when we need power. So it has a nice profile. What's happening is that some states have said, we're willing to pay above market to get the offshore wind industry kickstarted. Kind of like Georgia said, we're willing to pay above market to get these 2 new reactors online. And that's a great service to the country that they're performing because offshore wind is an immense resource. It could offer a lot of energy in the future. It does require some upfront investment, right, to get it down the cost curve. But if you're going to get rid of the leases, then it has no possibility of growing as an industry. And you're basically preventing those states from saying, we want to develop this resource.
Thank you. And I'll just note in my final seconds that one of the quickest ways that we can help to address the growing demand is to also help mitigate that demand through things like energy efficiency programs that are the fastest and cheapest way to help address demand and slow its growth. So you all touched on that in your testimony, and I just wanted to reiterate that point, given that we're taking some opposite actions here in Congress last week and this week on the House floor. Thank you, and I yield back.